Okay, welcome back. We are with Katie Holland from Awakened Bellydance, an entrepreneur since she was 19 and also has 2 children of her own. And today we are talking about the different opportunities that are available for successful entrepreneurial parents. So Katie, welcome back and thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
And we are going to start with the topic of flexibility, being flexible for different things that can happen throughout the entrepreneurial journey, throughout the day, and how important that is to balance that with both work and family life. So how have you incorporated that type of flexibility into your work, business, and family life?
I think everything is pretty fluid for me in in all ways. Yeah, like I said in the previous video, it's been difficult for me to differentiate between passion and what's considered work. Because my work is my passion.
Being flexible as an entrepreneur, I see it both ways, like both a challenge and an opportunity, right? So when you're too flexible, that isn't stable. And by being too rigid, we can crack under pressure. So for me, I found it best to be like the bamboo reed in the storm. Like Sun Tzu from The Art of War, he's saying, just go with the breeze, right? When the storm picks up, it's important not to have those roots too deep and dug in, and then you're resisting the flow. It's best to go with the flow, and then when all the other trees are getting ripped out of the ground and being flung across the way, you can still just be quite flexible, right? So when it comes to, let's say, my working style, for a long time I have had in digital work. So working remote for me is great, right? I can take a laptop and find a quiet room if that doesn't need a lot of space. Also, if there's construction around the house, or it's a bit too noisy and I can't concentrate, well, I can always just rent a room somewhere. Like there's remote offices where different people are working, and as long as they have nice digital connections, then voila, right? So I can work here or there. Also with time, working now or later. Also simply following how I feel, right? So creating those bullet points for the morning, yet being flexible about the time when those get finished and still being quite productive. That's the formula for success, and especially around when you've got kids as well.
Yeah, and I think for me, because I often have several projects on the go, or several deadlines, and I'm often in countries where the Wi-Fi isn't the best. So if I've got my list for that day of do whatever it is and it's online, but then I can't do it, then I look at, okay, what else is on my list maybe for tomorrow or for the next day, and how can I swap it around? So okay, I'll work on a choreography, or I'll design a newsletter. So I have everything interchangeable, and I don't pressure myself that, oh, well, this has to be today, or it's got to be at this time. So if there is a deadline, say to write an article for a magazine, I always make sure that I leave myself plenty of time, because I know that probably other things are going to come in, or a client will book for sessions or something. And so, everything, like I said, it's quite fluid and shifting sands, and okay, now I'll come back to that. And I find that things always work out in the way that they need to work out, because maybe I got delayed from doing one thing, but by doing something else, I got some insight into writing that article, or into planning that retreat, or and then if there's anything else, then I'm always studying things, so that can be something else that I'll go to. Or if all else fails, like there's no power, or there's no Wi-Fi or something, then I'll move to something else, which could be fixing a costume, or you know, like there's always a list. And so I feel that it's like step by step that yeah, there's a production happening, yeah, in the order that it comes.
Yeah, and also how you said if there's power, if there's no power, if there's connection or not. And yeah, that's at different stages, there are different tasks that can be done, and moving those pieces around, that
Mm,
makes a lot of sense. You know, and being flexible with when things get done, that's really important for, you know, making sure everything is just moving a little bit every day, and right, and that can really work really well.
yeah, yeah. And also with the day, I think of the day, say morning, afternoon, evening. And if there's things that can't happen in the morning, then okay, I'm having the morning off. I'll go for a swim or whatever. I'm going to read a book, and then I'll do it in the evening. So I shift the day around, or I'll have the afternoon off, or yeah, again, depending on how things are happening.
Right. And so when it comes to having like a work-life balance and integrating the two, how is it that you find that balance with your daily life?
Mm. Yeah, this again, when I was younger, I think my social life suffered a lot. On the other hand, a lot of yeah, a lot of what I'm doing, retreats or doing a workshop or doing a performance, then the people who came as students, many of them have become really good friends over the years. So there is a social aspect to that, to my work as well. And and again, navigating that and the personal boundaries within it. And then some people become really close friends because of yeah, the relationship develops. And I think in the early days, I felt like I couldn't say no to things because I was trusting, but I wasn't able to fully um, let go, to really yeah, just allow things to kind of ebb and flow as they needed to. And now this last, I guess, 10, 15 years, I've been able to yeah, to say no to things, um and just say no, I can't do it then, but I could do it at that time, or I can do these dates and not this date. And so I've made it work for me, and instead of being just okay, click and she's going to come.
Yeah, that's really important in creating boundaries, right?
Mm,
And also creating the life that you want to live. So you are not overextending yourself or self-sacrificing or sabotaging in any way, like giving too much. So yeah, I can see how that's really quite important for integrating a family into some of the work. Sometimes that has been quite helpful and supportive in maintaining a few different business units along the way from my perspective, right? I've had times when the kids
mm,
or my partner were helping me packing boxes or printing and sticking on labels on boxes, right, to ship things out, even like collecting different pieces to ship in those boxes as well, right? Assembling items, that kind of thing. So sometimes there can be an overlap between how the family can support the business and then also having them learn a little bit about how businesses can run at the same time so that they can learn, but we can all get done quicker. We can get back to something that is more relaxing at the same time. And it can be fun at times, right? As well, if you're, you know,
mm.
really keeping things light and, you know, getting them involved and things like that. So,
Yeah, and also I think it's really good education for the children to do that as well, so they understand where the money is coming from into the house, and also um yeah, how to be creative, and also to be disciplined in what you're doing. So they yeah, like you say, I would get them involved. They would come to retreats with me and help. And I mentioned about performances, um, and the same thing with packing things, because I also design clothing and sell jewelry. So they would help me when I go to the tailors. They help me so many times to design a new kind of vest, and say, okay, how shall we do this, and what colors shall we make it, and help me negotiate the price with them. And so yeah, so they've been very involved in with and going across India and Nepal as well, to meet with tailors and look at fabrics, and I get them to help me choose the jewelry. Yeah, like everything. So they were doing this from a really young age. And
Yeah, yeah, what you said about the kids understanding where the money comes in, right? That's a really important thing for kids to learn, since they don't really learn how to either manage money in school, how to balance a budget, like savings versus investment, and learning about either passive versus active income, and trading time for money, that kind of thing. Yeah, that can really educate the kids around finances. And also, the topic that I want to get into is financial security and navigating those ups and downs when with the ebb and flow of different, for your case, it's like gigs, and for my case, it would be, let's say, different jobs or projects. And so, how do you navigate those ups and downs for creating that stability, like financially?
yeah, I realized quite early on that I needed to have several streams of income. So I had teaching dance, holistic therapies, and then performing. So this is before retreats or trainings. And I was teaching Reiki as well, so that would be a training. And over, I guess, a 2-3 year period, I started to realize that when one of those streams was quiet, something else would come to the fore, and then that would go quiet, and something else would come. And I couldn't exactly predict what would be busier when, um, or the way that it would change around. But because I recognized that, I was able to trust more that there's always something. And this was in England before I moved to India, and I think because it was in the country that I grew up in and money that I understood, it was easier to trust that at the beginning. When we moved to India, and I'd essentially left my regular classes and everything behind, and this is 2006, so there was no online really anything. I think I had an email at that point. And um and I was in this performance world, which was very, I didn't go there to perform. That all happened in a very film-like sort of way. And at the beginning, of course, people were getting to know me, and the gigs would be irregular. And I'd decided to stop teaching Reiki, and not to do the therapy so much, because I thought I really want to focus for performing. If I've got an opportunity, I'm in my 20s, so go for it. But at the beginning, yeah, with sometimes I had the equivalent of €1 and no work booked. And there was food in the fridge and petrol in the scooter, so I could get the kids to school and back. But that was it. I didn't have any kind of backup, or anybody giving me money or anything. And there were times I was a single mom as well. So um, it was, there were a lot of times that I was thinking, I just don't know what to do. And every time without fail, something would happen. I'd get a booking, somebody would contact me, they were traveling and they heard that I taught dance classes, and they would say, oh, can I do a 10 days private course with you? And it would be the exact amount of money to pay the rent, or like the school fees, or and I guess after a few months of this happening, I kind of got the message from the universe that it would always be okay. And then I think living in India as well, you have to surrender, because just the way that it is there. And so I was still aware of the money coming in and going out, but I didn't have the fear that came at the beginning. And still now I still live in that way. It's if I've got the money and I want to do something, then I'll do it. If I don't have the money, I don't do it. I don't have a credit card, and I don't have a mortgage. I've never taken any loans. Um, like I've never got involved in this system
A debt-based system, right?
Yeah, I'm a very yeah, and also to see, of course, money as energy, and that you do need to spend it as well. It has to have a life, and getting the balance right in that spending. So I've just trusted that that's the basis of it.
Yeah,
And even of course with lockdown, it's that was a huge test in the trust, because I couldn't travel and all my work was cancelled apart from one training for the whole of 2020. And yeah, like, what do you do? Because I felt like I've been all around the world and done all these really amazing things, and things beyond my ambitions and dreams. And then 20 years later, I'm back in my teenage bedroom at my parents and feeling like there's nothing. I mean, there was something, but in that moment, I felt like, what did I do all this for? And or yeah, and all the times that I missed things, and now it's come to this. And what was the point of that?
right.
So this was quite a process for me in that time.
Yeah, there's a lot of faith that goes along with trust, and those two together can support the risk of being an entrepreneur even out, because we don't have to live with that fear of, oh, where's the money coming from? It seems to be like a very lower octave of emotion and energy when we can just jump to a higher octave or energy or frequency of all my needs are met. I have everything I need at all times. Something great is coming to me and it's going to take care of everything. It's,
Yeah.
when you like really feel that right in the center, then that faith and that trust can really, lead the way. Yeah, it was lockdown was very interesting for me as well. I was building a events marketing company at the time, and we had my partner and I had the first big event, and it's this worldwide event that's in Barcelona, and it was going to be our big coming out party right there. It's like, hey, we did this stand, and then everyone was going to love it, and then we were going to get lots of business from that and just build the business. And the night before the show, this like 3 day exhibition where there's, I think, 30,000 people that come through over those 3 days. It was canceled. And and it came on the news, like it was in the evening, and they said, sorry, Spain is closing and everybody's got to go home. And this isn't right. And the whole business just collapsed. So I was like, oh my goodness. Right. Yeah. For me to get through those times of uncertainty and doubt and that fear as well, one of the things is having a little more savings, right? Yet at the same time, I'm a very extreme personality, and I like making risky investments as well, right? Because you make big gains from big risks and big rewards, and hallelujah, right? Yet when it comes to having kids around, that's something that really needs to be pulled back a bit, right? And then it's more the concept of incremental gains over time with lower risks is still a win, right? And
Mm,
that's much
yeah.
better with kids, right? So with inflation, it's important not to have too much money in savings just sitting there because of inflation. And right now, if it was 15% or something like that, then that money next year is worth 15% less. And the next year it's then 30. So it needs to be money can be making money, right? So the higher risk stuff, which I really enjoy, and it's, the real wild west, is like cryptocurrencies and investing in new businesses as well that I believe in, right? Yet the lower risk stuff, if it's like stocks or even real estate and commodities, those are more stable over time. They're not like this, but they're more like this. So
Mm.
that's, how to manage that risk and have a little less, having less risk and more stability. At the same time, here in the Netherlands, there's not a big education bill that's coming up for the kids once they graduate high school, right? Everything is, the kids' university is paid for. It's part of the way society works. So they just have to come up with the food, the books, the housing, that kind of thing, and the party money, right? The enjoyment. And then they don't have those big 5-figure bills or debt waiting for them when they turn 18 or when they're done at 22
Yeah.
or whatever it is. So that's also, let's say, a plus for stability.
Yeah, and I think like at the moment I'm living in Egypt and having different currencies in cash as well, because looking at this fluctuation of things and just having little chunks in dollars or in euros or in pounds or in the local currency, and knowing that you can go between depending on what you're paying for or where you're going to, and I also feel that it feels like I'm opening myself to more travel adventures as well by having different kinds of currencies with me. It's this is the feeling I get in me. It's like, okay, yeah, I could go here because it's this currency, and oh, this is opening this for me. So in my wallet that I have, say, every day that I carry around with me, I have a little bit of currency from maybe 4 or 5 different countries. It could just be a coin, like a €1, but I have something from everywhere that wherever I've been to most recently, that I've got change that's left over or something, and it kind of gives me this feeling of possibilities, and I think what you were just saying with the company that crashed and everything. I remember in November 2019, I was looking in my diary for 2020, and I thought, after all this time, like, I've got it. I've got the balance, the work, the travel, the taking time off. I'd got the whole year planned out, and I was going to teach in 7 countries. I'd got a retreat center in Bulgaria that was for a certain amount of time each year, like everything, and I'd managed to do it in the healthiest way possible. And I had that book in my hand, and I thought, wow, like I finally got it. And then, of course, it was gone. So, but for that moment, I felt like I had the understanding of how I needed to space things out.
Yeah, that was quite a shock for everybody, right? Some time to
Mm.
really rethink our lives. Yet, in your scenario, you said having different types of currency available to you. That sounds like a very stable way of having your finances, because when you put everything into digital, then there's nothing laying around. And so it's important to have diversity, right? So if you have some digital currencies, that's great. And then some money in the bank. And then, of course, there's currencies like cash as well. Yet you're saying there's multiple currencies because, with inflation and things, I mean, especially in Turkey, I mean, things are wild over there, right? And even like,
Mm.
I believe in Brazil and is it Costa Rica? They're changing their currencies over to even Bitcoin and things as well. So let's say if one currency is having an issue that day, well then there's still no problem, because you've got pounds or you've got euros, something more, or even dollars, something more stable. So that sounded like a really way to diversify and still like have it in your hand.
Yeah, yeah, it's been really helpful to do that, and especially because when a month after we left India, the government there literally overnight said that a certain note, I can't remember which one it was, but they said it was deleted,
Right.
and no, and this just happened in, and nobody could get any money. Anybody that had cash at home, they couldn't change it, and people were queuing for days outside the ATMs, and then they suddenly brought in a new note, and when I saw that, and I thought how lucky we were that we had left before that just literally weeks before it happened, and how badly that would have affected us as well. And so from then I thought, okay, we always have different currencies. And so this is probably like 8, 9 years ago now. And then I can look at, okay, I need money for this. So which currency am I going to get the best exchange on? And
Right.
yeah, and do it that way.
Yeah, it's something that entrepreneurs have to really get a hold of to make sure that they can sustain business, especially at hard times and times that can come out and shock us as well, like come out of nowhere.
Mm.
So, yeah, and then how that can really lead into, especially entrepreneurs with kids, is being a positive role model, right? Because of the different ways that the kids can learn from us and learn about money, of course, the things they don't learn at school. Yet, when the kids were around, how did you really step into like that positive role model for the kids with your business?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, an ongoing joke with them is how unstrict I was or am, and that that maybe they were supposed to be in trouble for something. I mean, obviously not anything major, and I would start laughing and say, "Oh yeah, I can remember doing this," and uh, yeah, I tried to communicate with them rather than freaking out over things, and still now as well. And in the same way, I was really honest with them about money. And if we had less money or the equivalent, €1, 100 rupees, I would say to them, look, this is the situation right now. And it's okay, we've got food, but it's going to be a few days that maybe we can't do some things that we would usually do. And then other times I would have had a lot of work, and then I'd say, okay, right, what shall we do with this? We've got this proportion to do something, and how would you like to spend it? And so I kept them involved, not in a way of, oh, poor us, and this is terrible, and but just in a very authentic way, so that they could see the way that I was kind of managing things. And of course, because of that, I'm really brilliant at juggling the sort of money, the flow of in and out. I mean, I hope that this gave them a positive role model to kind of live through, and how to understand that it's something else is always coming, and that it's always going to be okay.
Yeah, I think your kids in that scenario got a really good idea of how to problem solve and getting into
Yeah.
a very solution orientated mindset versus falling back into a victim mentality, right? So that is incredibly important for kids to learn, because you don't really learn that in school either, about the mindset, right? So
Yeah.
and that there are huge opportunities at every moment when a problem arises, right? Because how I understand energy is that the solution comes in at the same time as the problem, and so you simply have to focus on the solution, and because it's instantly there at the same time the problem comes up. So remembering that and also teaching that to the kids is priceless, right?
Yeah, and I would do things like, say, we would go to festivals in the summer in England, and I would be teaching and performing, and then it was brilliant. I could take them with me, and I would have a stand with my jewelry and clothes. So I would say to them, okay, if you have £10 of your pocket money, I'll give you another £10. So you've got £20 each. You can also buy things in India that children would like, so hair clips, or and it could be anything, sweets as well, because the same sweets in England that were much cheaper in India. So they would both have a stash that they would then also take to the festivals, and they would have their own little table, and they would get the kids to come, which would then bring the parents, and then they'd go, my mum has got really nice jewelry for you here. And so or the parents would come to me, and I'd see they got children. Oh, this, you might like some of this here. And so we had this really good triple tag team going on, and they would go off and find people and start talking to them, and maybe carry things that they were selling in a box. So they were mobile, and I would be there, and then they would direct people to me. And and then they would keep the profit. And then often they would say, okay, we're gonna, I don't know, they'd buy me an ice cream or something like that. They would, and then I could see how happy they were that they could then buy that for me from their profit.
Right.
So yeah, this was really lovely to see them. This is when they were like 4 years. Ty would have been 4 and Xavier was 7. So from that age onwards, they were doing that.
Yeah, really ingenuitive,
Mm,
inspired in the moment, and can see that they can create things and work as a team and, help the family by just being out there, since you were in a spot and they could be mobile. Yeah, it's fantastic.
yeah, and it was their idea to do that, and then
Right,
I said, okay, we'll do this. I'll match your pocket money,
right,
and so it gives you extra. And yeah, it was so much fun, and also they loved it being able to choose things that they knew other children would like, and could have been bubbles, anything, face paints and things. And yeah, and then they of course made more friends and became more confident to speak to even more people.
right. Yeah, there seems to be a very nice evolution when it comes to just putting on that more outgoing, extroverted persona, right? Of, oh, I can do this, well, then I can do that too. And it's, very explorative. And
Mm,
yeah, that's really great for kids, especially since they a lot of the times have an easier way of communicating because they are their authentic self when they're very young, right? They don't have to think too
yeah.
much about how to do these different things. They just do it. Right.
Yeah, they just look cute and and say, "Oh, I like playing with this. Do you?"
Yeah, it was funny when I was a kid and working with my dad on the apartments. He was a very great positive role model because of his work ethic, right? He's very disciplined, and yet nothing was more important than the family. So he would be a teacher at school during the early morning and midday, I think until 3 o'clock. And then it's time to go off to the apartments. Or he would be a coach for a different team at the school and he would, have a few hours for that as well. And then on the weekends, there's the games and, right, and then during accountant season, uh, he would be in one of his buildings. He had an office and he was running an accountant business out of his own building. It was a very, uh, brilliant way of going about it. Yet it didn't matter what day it was or how many things were going on. He was always home at 6 o'clock at dinner, right? It didn't matter, right? It was like, that's dinner time, and we would all know, don't be late, right? Because we're gonna all sit down at dinner. And then, of course, he would get his time with us to check in with us and tell us about his day. And he used to stop at the bookstore or at the magazine shop. They were throwing away different comic books and books that they didn't want, that were no one was going to buy. So he'd go in once a week, and I think it was Wednesdays, and he would go in right about the time when they were about to close, going into the back, and they'd give him a box of like different comic books. So he'd come home every Wednesday for me and be like, "Here you go, right at dinner. Here's your comics," and it's like a couple big stacks. I'm like, man, right? It was always really great, and he was always there. You know what I mean? He was extremely busy, but he always had time to connect and have things for us. And
Mm,
yeah, so yeah, that real entrepreneurial spirit. It seems we both learned that when we were young, and we were able to teach that to the kids somewhat as well. So great, definitely. Thanks for your time. It's
thank you.
quite illuminating to hear about all of the different experiences and all the different opportunities that you've both experienced and that there is to experience when it comes to being an entrepreneur with kids. So definitely check out Katie's channel as well, and stay tuned for the next video when we are going to get into the different strategies that entrepreneurs with kids can implement for lots more success. So thanks for watching. Till next time.